In this vlog, we're looking at Obsidian Fury. We're taking a look at the miniatures, the Jaegers, and the Kaiju from Pacific Rim Extinction. We're looking at their power cards. We're unlocking, using a matrix-type system, asking ourselves the question tactically, based on their abilities, based on what they can do from these cards, what's going to be the primary focus? What's going to be the primary focus in the game? Now, of course, we're going to layer over mutations, and the pilots, the mission, the terrain. All those things kind of get mixed into the secret sauce of your tactics. But I find a good starting point is, what are we trying to do with this unit? And the matrix that I'm using is this idea of Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. Essentially, these are three piles, three groups of the action cards. And Tier 1, this is the primary thrust. This is the good stuff. This is the type of stuff that grabs your attention and what this unit excels at, whether it's a Jaeger or a Kaiju. This is what we're going to try to do on the table. Tier 2 cards are cards that, outside of combat, or on the way into combat, or if I'm trying to run and outflank, that I'm possibly going to utilize. And then Tier 3 are cards that I find are very situational. They could be, and often are, very powerful, but you need a couple of other key things to align in order to make it happen on there. Trying to pull together a starting point for the unit. And again, in this case, we're looking at Obsidian Fury to fit your play style. So Tier 1, I broke this, I was going to say Kaiju up, but we broke this Jaeger, this mech up, into Tier 1 and Tier 2. There are no Tier 3 cards. This is a very, very aggressive machine. This is a very straightforward machine with how to play. That doesn't mean it's very, very easy to play. Now, here's the challenge in terms of a wargaming system. When you have, I like to use the term Death Star, when you have a unit that is so powerful, a Death Star unit, and you bring that to the table, it's a lot of fun. Already this piece, in playing it, I've been having a lot of fun playing it. But it has the duality of, it's going to attract a lot of attention. Your opponent is going to have to focus on it. They're going to have to be aggressive in dealing with it. And honestly, they're going to have to destroy it. So it's going to provoke an extreme response. Are you okay with that extreme response? Are you? I mean, if it gets blown up and taken out early on, you can't nerd rage on it. You can't get angry on it. Like, what is your opponent supposed to do? Let it run around there with the twin chain swords, just blasting everything, cutting everything up? Like, they have to respond to it. The other challenge with such an extreme piece is, can you capitalize not only on the killie? And what I mean by that is when you go in and you play a piece like this and you invoke that extreme response from your opponent, for the brief time that it's alive, that it's up, that it's running, that it's not destroyed, they're going to be focusing on it. Their attention, the scope of the gaming table is literally going to narrow to where that piece is. Can that create? It will. It will create opportunity on the table for your other pieces to take advantage of mission parameters. Think of it as a distraction piece. Think of it something that's going to buy you a couple of turns. So tactically, when we go through these Tier 1 cards, and you're going to get really excited by what they can do, immediately you might be thinking, in this case, look, I'm going to throw this against the toughest stuff and smash it. And you might. Or if you throw it up against the toughest stuff that's out there, you might self-destruct on it, meaning you might take something out, but in return, it's going to damage you so much, you're not really effective, you're really damaged, you've lost a lot of systems, you lost a few cards, and then you get taken out. Or, and this gets counterintuitive, this is how I've been playing it and how I see it, or I should say one of the ways to play it and see it. When you have something so powerful, go after the weakest stuff that you can. If you can damage and kill one piece and then damage and kill or weaken a second piece, if you can gobble up weaker stuff on the table, overpower it, that narrows the focus even more of your opponent. That narrows the focus even more. Like, I got to take out Obsidian Fury. I have to take this thing out. It's just going crazy. It's just destroying stuff. I have to take it out. Their mind focuses more on that single point on the table than the mission. And Pacific Rim Extinction being an amazing miniatures game. Absolutely. Fantastic visuals, fantastic narrative, everything. But it's still a war game. It's still a war game. And yes, there's missions out there, kill everything, but there's also a variety of tactical missions. So a piece that can be used to distract from those tactical missions through extreme force, that's another possibility on there. So we're going to look at Fire Plasma Missiles. This is the first card that caught my attention. And again, this is tier 1 on there. It's going to cost me some Kaiju Blue. So I've got a Jaeger and I'm going to juice up. I'm like Bane, juicing up on there. I spend that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to have the ability, if I roll one or more triggers in this attack phase, I can spend 2 rage to gain +1 success per trigger rolled. And then if attacking at long range, the attack is at a penalty on there. So essentially, I can make a ranged attack, rolling triggers. On average, you'll roll maybe, if we're looking at average stat line, 1 trigger a turn. If I roll legendary, 2 triggers a turn. We get into dice modification. And we looked at this as one of the strengths of Saber Athena, which I pushed up to my channel here under the archive list for Pacific Rim. The ability to change dice and manipulate dice legally in the game. We're not talking about like sleight of hand or crazy cheating. The ability to change dice and add them is huge. So the fact that we have that possibility means I want to hold on to my Kaiju juice so I can boost those as necessary. So if I roll legendary and I roll some triggers, I want to use those triggers on there. I want to leverage that, pushing that out against my opponent. They need to be ready for that. That creates a little bit of uncertainty. So you're doing the math hammer, you're crunching the numbers, and you're like, okay, I can engage Obsidian right now. We can do it. I'm weakened, I'm hurt, but I can do it. But if Fritz gets some triggers, I don't know, man. If he just picks those dice up and the dice gods bless him this turn, that's something you have to work at. It creates, from the tactical perspective, a guaranteed damage output with the possibility of more. And that's random. I got to take that random into account, both as attacker and defender. I like that right away on there. We've then got heightened reflexes. Well, actually, let's keep the assault on the assault here. So we have shooting, twin chainswords. I mean, you can see that from the model. The pose is just beast. The sculpt is amazing. It's really menacing. You've got those twin chainswords out there, and you're like, this is pretty crazy. We haven't even cracked open the cards yet. Let's see what it can do and how it can represent. Twin chainswords. If you roll 2 or more triggers on this attack, I can spend 1 rage to make another attack. So right away, there's a lot of good stuff going on these 2 cards. I'm going to be spending my Kaiju blood, and I'm going to be spending that rage. I can hit you. If I get the trigger, there's the possibility of making another attack. What this means is it creates some uncertainty as an opponent facing this on there. If you're weakened and you've already taken some damage, do you want to engage me? Can you afford to engage me? If you're full health, you're like, okay, if Fritz rolls legendary, I could take it. I don't want to take it. I'm not happy about taking it, but I could. But then I'm going to get to counter and activate, and I'm going to put the pain back on. But now if we're mid-game, Pacific Rim tactics, starting game, mid-game, end game. If we're mid-game, everyone's taking a little bit of damage. Hopefully you've tried to spread that damage out among your units based on how you engage. Easier said than done. Admittedly, you're thinking to yourself, okay, I can take on Obsidian and go toe-to-toe, but if Fritz activates those power surges on the triggers, and he's got the Kaiju blood, and he's got the Bane Rage to do it, I don't know. Do I want to gamble with that? Can I gamble with that? Those are questions that create uncertainty. And again, this goes back to, these are questions that we're looking at the overall gaming table, or we should be in theory, for mission parameters, but as we tend to focus in on one piece that's really powerful, a unit, a Jaeger, a Kaiju, things start to get very, very interesting with that. The dice manipulation. Brace. I get to pivot, so we get that free little turn. While Brace is in play, you have +2 armor, and it remains face up. That allows you to tank a little bit on there. Tactically now what we see, it's not over till it's over. You're not dead till you're dead on there, but your Jaeger, once it takes the tier 2 damage, and it takes the damage before the next hit kills it, often at that point, look, if my opponent rolls average, and I block average or a little bit below average, I can counter that damage on there, I'm probably going to get taken out. There's absolutely no cushion on there, because I've only got one point left, one structure point left before I get taken out. So often what we see with that is we're going to go big, right? I'm smoking, the power plant's about to blow, my arm's missing, my leg is just completely shattered, I'm barely standing up. It's pretty much over. I'm going to go in a blaze of glory. I mean, that who could ask for a better narrative than that on the tabletop before my Jaeger just gets torn apart and explodes? Hopefully I can hit the ejection system before that happens. I mean, that's an amazing narrative. Often with the Jaegers, that's your only option. Well, with Obsidian now, I'll go full defensive on there. We have another tactical option. I might not be able to kill you, but instead of going alpha, if I can go defensive and boost things, now does that mean rather than killing me this turn, it takes you next turn? If I can delay that, right? If I can bog you down, especially if you're on your way for a mission, think about that. Yes, of course, it is a war game. 100%. This is a war game that we're playing. It's got a lot more depth and detail than just pretty miniatures and great terrain and fun rules. It's tactical. The focus of the tactical is always to destroy, but sometimes you can buy more for the mission, buy you more time by holding out, letting your opponent sink in double, triple resources in order to do that. That's not always the best option, but I find with that card we have that option up there. Counter-Strike. I make an attack, and after Obsidian Fury is attacked while Counter-Strike is in play, I can make an attack against the attacking model. This can happen multiple times in a round. Wait, what? Like, I read that. That's crazy. So now we have a unit that has good offense because I've got the dice manipulation on the triggers. I could go all tank defensive and just try to bog you down, right? Try to keep you engaged with me for an extra turn. Might not work, admittedly. But now if I'm really surrounded, sometimes you'll find on the missions there's a choke point based on how the terrain is set up, where if I can place a Jaeger or I can place a Kaiju, you got to go through me on there. So naturally, in order to go through me, you're not going to engage 1-to-1. You want to try and engage 2-to-1 at a minimum. I mean, look, I'd like to engage, 3 or 4 pieces to 1, but 1 depends on how big of a game you're playing, and there's other areas to be. But generally speaking, 2-to-1, and that's true of any war game. I want to gang up on your units. And often the limitation we see with pieces is you can only, for the most part, in most wargaming systems, attack 1-to-1. So if I have a tank and you have 2 tanks, you can both shoot at me. I can only shoot at one of you. Well, playing this card, if we're engaged in close combat on there, assuming I'm alive, I can strike back all around. If someone is able to get to my rear arc, which is devastating in this game, on there, I'm in trouble. But if I can keep you in front on there to make that attack, that's big. So we're looking back at this miniature on the box, and it's got the 2 blazing chainswords, and it looks beast, but you start to look at it, tremendous tactical depth on it. As of Wave 1 right now, and again, Wave 2, this needs to happen. Can't get here fast enough as of this podcast. As of Wave 1 right now, this machine has, in my opinion, the most tactical flexibility out of all the pieces on there. Just on the options that you can do in the moment. Heightened reflexes. We're still on Tier 1. We've got all the cards in Tier 1. And I should say the only card that's in Tier 2 is the the power surge here, essentially to gain full rage or run. We're going to do that to get into a good position, get out of a position, or juice up. I don't even see any tier 3 cards in this review. Heightened reflexes. I take a tactical action, and then I make a melee attack, close combat attack in there. So normally we make a tactical action, and that's it on there. So you're going to get to manipulate something as per the rules, and that's it. Well, now I get to manipulate and take a tactical action and try to smash you on that. So I guess that represents both of those twin chainswords moving around. That makes this card very, very effective on there because now you don't have to choose. Often what we see with the tactical actions is sometimes you have to make the choice, and if you're surrounded or if you're fighting, you don't want to play that card. That's why usually I consider that a tier 2 card, but this boosts it up into tier 1. A much harder machine to play than it looks. I mean, you could go in there and just go full alpha and attack and leverage that. Absolutely. You can do that with any of the miniatures. But I see this one excelling against multiple opponents, multiple targets on there, opening up multiple possibilities. That doesn't mean you're going to be successful. It's not an auto win, but you can certainly push it on the table.